SaveWithConrad.com.
My name is Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California. I came to Save with Conrad because I've heard Conrad talk about how he helps people all the time save money and the best route to go for getting some mortgages and finances done. And having heard so many different testimonials in the past, it made the most sense to go this route. We were in the market for a new house and we wanted to know what we could afford. So we spoke with Steve and then Diane to get through the pre-approval process to see what we could afford. And then once we were able to understand that aspect of it, that was when we were able to shop around for a house to get a mortgage through Save with Conrad. Everybody on the team was great. Everybody really explained everything fully to where it was more in like layman's terms to where I could understand it as someone not in the business or having shopped around for houses too many times. So being able to understand every step of the process and talking with everyone on the team about that was really, really helpful. And it made me feel really confident that I was going the right route. I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. I know that sometimes people look at it and they go, oh, they're based in Alabama. What could they help me with? But I'm out here in California and they were able to square everything away and get things done really quickly, as opposed to sometimes even people out here don't move as quickly as the Save with Conrad team. So everything was really well done, really efficient, and I would definitely recommend Save with Conrad to others. My name is Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California, and I was able to get into my dream home with SaveWithConrad.com.
That's number 212-9 Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad the Mortgage Guy, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the greatest professional wrestler of all time, your friend and mine, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, Conrad Thompson, happy My World recording day. Ready to kick this thing off. Life never slows down, man. Oh man, news. Had a good weekend, Connie. Attended a wedding. You ever been to a flash wedding? Well, I was at one Saturday night. We'll get into that if you want to briefly, but looking forward to it. Don't know if we're going to get to a topic. We've got a lot of news and notes and bits, and life is good, pal. The dog days of summer. Damn, it's hot outside, but I love it. Better than cold. How are you, Connie?
I'm great, man. A lot of big news we want to talk about. We are hopefully eventually going to get to our topic today. No Surrender 2005. Hard to believe that was 20 years ago, but you know, you and I didn't talk about this off air, but I was scrolling social media the other night and I saw you dressed to the nines and Miss Karen dressed to the nines and a handsome couple in the middle. And I thought to myself, did something big happen in the Jarrett family that I didn't know about? Because I kind of got that vibe. What's going on, Jeff?
Oh, it was not. It's a good buddy of mine back in the BS days. His name's Tim Gibbons, Bizzle. I met him carousing downtown Nashville, but it was a good friend of mine got married. On the invitation, Conrad, it said creative black tie. That was a pretty cool thing. It was a very, there was all kinds of different folks there. You probably saw the picture of Theo, Vaughn, but Bizzle and Theo worked together, but just all kind of people I got to see. And again, that creative black tie, it makes for an interesting people watching night. But the flash wedding, the arcade in downtown Nashville, it's got shops and all kind of things going on. So literally you got to get it permitted. And I heard there was all kind of fun stories for that, but they set the chairs out, boom, have the ceremony. It was game set match as far as the wedding part in like 40 minutes, maybe if that. And then we went inside to the Urban Cowboy, is the name of the place. Very, very nice, and had the reception and people everywhere, and a lot of people I got to catch up to. But my oldest daughter was there with her boyfriend. That might have been of what could have thrown you as a curveball, Connie. But no, it was a fun night. There's a real cool story of me and Bizzle's relationship, but he's I'll say this, he's been sober almost 6 years. So
that's great.
Yeah, we're on that journey, and I can probably share this. He probably wouldn't mind. So I was about 2 years into this, and Conrad, he texted me one Sunday afternoon. And so, the day that becomes before Sunday, it's Saturday night. So he had he tied one on, and he texted.
It's a canoe, maybe.
More than it. Lost a tooth. It was one of the all-timers that we might have, but he He did. He texted me, man, and then we jumped on the call. But he basically said, in nice diplomatic words, dude, if you can quit drinking, anybody can. But no, that's it. He was just like, man, I need help. And so it's very cool. His life, a 180, and he had known his now Crystal, his bride, but known her for several years, but no romantic involvement. They were just kind of buddies, and she probably looked at him side-eyed like, who is this moron? But no, they got together, and it's really cool. I mean, it's so good to see it. What's crazy is, Conrad, is that obviously the wedding's been planned, gosh, a long time now, maybe 9, 10, 11 months. It feels like quite a while. But obviously we weren't planning on seeing each other 2 weeks. I mean, 2 times in 1 week. So obviously Saturday on the wedding, but him and Theo were at the Hogan services. So you might have crossed paths with him, but we got to see each other 2 times in 1 week, one at a funeral and one at his wedding. So it was really good. It was made my heart good. I had a good conversation with his mom, and he's from Windsor, right across the border in Detroit. So there was probably 100 Canadians in the house, and it was really cool. Just the journey and how life is really good. He's career wise, he's doing great, but more importantly, his family and his personal outlook. And so made my heart feel good. And we had a good old time. And Miss Karen got to dress up, and my oldest daughter, Jocelyn. And anyway, we had a good time.
I'm excited for us to talk about our topic today. We will get to No Surrender 2005. We're also going to talk about UFC heading to Paramount. Got to touch on Karrion Kross. I know we'll circle back and talk a little bit more about that ESPN deal. There's a lot to unpack, but I do feel like we should go ahead and talk about that ceremony and service that we attended last week, because almost by accident, you and I wound up kind of being travel partners. Not really, but we both stayed.
We were.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of were. We didn't take the same flight down there, me flying out of Huntsville and you flying out of Nashville, but we landed, around the same time and stayed in hotels really close to each other and made the long trek over to Largo in an Uber. And Miss Karen was there, and man, it was kind of a surreal service. And I know we talked about it on the way over and on the way back, but without sharing too much of everybody's private stuff, I wanted to give you a minute to just talk about what a special day that was as we celebrated the real life Terry Bollea.
And that, Conrad, I've had Karen actually ask me, gosh, yeah, like she always does. Hey, what are y'all talking about? That was early this morning. I feel like it was yesterday. Yeah, this morning. And I said, No Surrender 2005. I said, we've kind of jump started, and it's how it goes and all this. And then she's like, oh, wow. Have you guys done a pod? Man, a lot's happened in the last 4, 5, 6 days in your life. And I won't get into the baseball news, and that's coming. But obviously the 2 things that I just kind of shared about was the wedding I went to on Saturday, but the service. And I just have mixed emotions because it was a very private gathering and everything that went with it. But I went to church yesterday morning, and I got a chance to see, my pastor, and we had chatted earlier in the week, and a couple of different folks. And, we're all some way or another. I truly believe this, a wrestling fan one way or another. But there was, and it's, it's public knowledge. Vince spoke, and Triple H spoke, and Nick and Jimmy and Hart. And so, the letter that was read from President Trump, but the uniqueness of that service to me, and this is something that in a lot of ways, to see context, we always talk about context is king and the full picture, especially when, man, and I can't wait to get to it, but when we talk about business deals and the era and the timing and just the market, all that kind of stuff, it just all matters of timing, everything. But the complete service was so, to me, and seeing a bunch of different faces that I hadn't seen, some in years, some in weeks and days, but all that. But when the pastor got up, Conrad, at the end, and he, in a way, gave his message that I guess you could say would be typical of a funeral. very, very good, Aaron Philibone. But his ability, in a way, to kind of weave in and out of it, Hulk's testimony over the last 2 years,
Yes.
that to me, here's a guy, obviously he's not in the wrestling business, and Lord knows, and every pastor will tell you this, the pastor business isn't squeaky clean. There's no such thing. We're all broken. The world is broken. But to hear him articulate specifically Hulk's last 2 years and his testimony, and how Hulk was viewing the world, and what he was doing, and all of that. And I shared this yesterday with a couple of guys at church, and I've shared it with other folks. That is something that I really, really wish the whole world could have heard, because it's not coming from a wrestling announcer or
Yes.
podcast or an interview or, promoting an event or even a documentary, and I get I get everything. I'm going to say this as simple as I can. His speech was obviously in private, invitation only, and there was, and I'm using this term, it was never, he obviously not done for clicks. And I'm trying to say that in a broad statement. He was pouring his heart out on the man that he knew. And that was really, really special. I thought, because, I wasn't sure when Hulk passed, and just everything that was going on and scheduling, didn't know what it was. But I sat there in my seat, and right as the pastor finished, I leaned over to Karen and I said, "My God, I am so glad I'm here to hear that." It really was a special moment for me and Karen. So that's what I'll share, Conrad. It was really, really cool to hear that. So yeah, it was something.
It really was special. I agree with you. I guess I hadn't really thought about that, but I wish that the Hulk Hogan critics and naysayers, I wish that they would have had an opportunity to hear directly from his pastor what the real life Terry Bollea's life has been like for the last few years. It was a pretty surreal moment. There was a lot of, like when they shine the light where Hulk's at every week in church, man, it just got me. I don't know. I wasn't expecting for them to announce and show with a purple light directly from above, right on the seat, that this is where he sat. And the way Nick finished his speech, what you going to do when my dad's watching over you? It was just, I don't think I expected it to be, I don't know, maybe because I wasn't as close to the family as some others. I don't know. I just didn't expect it to be as emotional and touching. But the pastor, man, at Indian Rocks Christian, shout out to him. If you're in the area, he did a tremendous job of framing who Terry Bollea was in 2023 and 2024 and 2025. And I walked out of there with a lot of confidence about what the future looks like, and what Terry Bollea's life is like right now in the afterlife.
It was, I was actually in the reception, Conrad, and I only shared this with Karen, and I'll share it because I've had time to process it. Two different people, we were chatting and everything. And it's funny how me and Hulk's relationship, that a lot of people, and I get it. It's the nature, bash at the beach, and oh man, this and that. And then, the time in TNA, and, when I had a conversation with my stepmom, and her memories of, being there and helping shoot the Hulk video, and she took the lamp off the wall, off the table, and helped light it because Hulk and Dad weren't really cool with the lighting. They needed more light, all this kind of stuff. So the ability to really separate business from personal, and knowing that I felt when I got on that plane, I was going to pay respects to Hulk Hogan, his role in our industry, pay respects to the industry, pay respects to Terry Bollea, Nick, and the family. Also, I felt there was a part of it that I was also paying respect to my father.
Yeah.
And that, at the end of the day, truly, man, life is so short. Business is business, and we can all get sideways on those kind of relationships. But at the very end of the day, yeah, what you just said, seeing what really matters, and that's we're here for a blink of an eye, eternity's eternity. So it made my heart feel good to know the real relationship that Hulk had with the Lord.
Amen to that. I hope that the family finds peace and contentment. I hated to see that, some of that has played out in the public, and I wish that some of it was a little more private. I was kind of shocked when people were taking selfies at the casket and stuff and posting it on social. It was kind of weird, but
Glad I didn't see that.
The message was there in a big way. And I can't help but feel like there's a lot of people in that room who were probably moved by what they heard and made a decision to adjust their sails a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and we're listening. Aaron did a heck of a job.
Yeah. Shout out to Indian Rocks Christian. Let's talk about some wrestling.
Oh boy, I can't wait to pick your brain. And folks, if you're listening, and some people, and I do, I listen to podcasts in cars or getting ready or at the gym and all this. My gut tells me and Conrad might get sideways today. I can't wait to pick your brain today, pal.
Well, before we do, Silva just told me that he had something ready.
Oh,
I don't know that you saw this outside before we made our way in the Uber back to Tampa proper, if you will.
I was hungry, Conrad, so I probably wasn't looking out the window. I'm kidding.
Dan Margera posted this online, and everybody paid attention to what the clouds look like over Indian Rocks Christian. How amazing is that, Jeff?
You know my thoughts. There are no such thing as coincidences, only convergences.
Shout out to the Hulkster.
Yep.
Let's talk about the big news this morning, and boy, there's a lot of it. But I want to hit it right at the top, and we're going to talk about what might be the end of pay-per-view. But before we do, I want to remind you that if you own a handgun for self-defense, your storage likely fits into one of two frustrating categories. It's either locked away, meaning it's safe, but it's out of reach in case of an emergency, or it's unsecured, leaving it vulnerable for anyone. Well, Stopbox USA solved the problem and designed a groundbreaking solution. It's called the Stopbox Pro. And with the Stopbox Pro, you'll never have to choose between security and readiness again. Its ingenious push-button locking system gives you fast, reliable access when every second matters. Without the hassle of keys or reliance on batteries, it's 100% mechanical, so it works every time, no power needed. And with Stopbox USA, you can finally have both security and readiness. The Stopbox Pro's mechanical keyless system allows for fast, secure access without the risk of fumbling for keys when every second counts. It's also battery-free, so you never have to worry about your lock not working. And you don't even have to worry about tariffs because everything is sourced right here in the USA. All the Stopbox products are proudly made in the USA in their own facility. That ensures the highest quality of every product that gets sent out, but it also creates jobs for the American worker. And how about Stopbox Pro also is TSA compliant, and Stopbox has a whole lot more than just the Stopbox Pro. They've got other innovative stuff like the vehicle safe and chamber lock and all your essential gear to keep you prepared and protected wherever you may be. And for a limited time only, our listeners can get a crazy deal on Stopbox. What about 15% off your entire order when you use our code Jarrett? And for even better savings, shop their bundles for the best deals on their best-selling products. Check out their bundles and save an exclusive 15% off site-wide when you use the code Jarrett at StopboxUSA.com. Discover a better way to balance security and readiness with Stopbox. So, Jeff, the big news today is about UFC. We jokingly talked about the ESPN deal last week, and we've got more details on that now. We now understand that all of the WWE pay-per-views are not going to be on ESPN Plus. I think there was a lot of assumptions made because that's the way the UFC model was going, that's what was going to happen here. That is not the case. In fact, the major PLEs are now on regular old ESPN. So if you have ESPN cable on as a part of your cable package with, say, Verizon or Xfinity or YouTube TV, you're going to be able to see these major events, whether it's SummerSlam or it's WrestleMania or it's Royal Rumble, starting next year. All of that's going to be on ESPN. Now, this is a sign to the rest of the world that, hey, the pay-per-view business may be in jeopardy. And you and I, speaking last week, said, hey, if they're coming up with all this cash, because they were making $100 million a year, $180 million a year, pardon me, with Peacock, I think Nick Khan will look back at that as like his rookie contract. because he got it up to 325 here, nearly double a year that they're going to get for those PLEs. But they're not leaving any money on the table there because now more people than ever will see those shows. I think the demand for tickets are going to go up. If you're stressing about what WWE tickets cost now, wait 2 years. They're going to be even more expensive because they'll be in more demand. More people, your cume, your audience will be larger as a result of this. So because more eyeballs will be on the product, they'll be able to charge more for advertising. So Jeff, I know some of our listeners are upset with all the ads that they see on like a SummerSlam. Oh, there's so many commercials. Oh, there's ads and sponsors everywhere. That's not going away. I'm not saying there will be more because I don't know how many more they can shoehorn in. The cost of those ads will go up. More people will see it. So now instead of it being behind the paywall, and imagine how many people were seeing that, you're going to be talking about a multiple. And Jeff, you and I were talking off air. If you're really going to do 2 WrestleManias next year, two-night WrestleManias, you've essentially got I'm going to stop short of saying 4 Super Bowls, but it will be probably like 4 college football playoff games, 4 NFL playoff games. Like they've locked down major viewership, not just for WrestleMania, but for SummerSlam, for Royal Rumble. This is, I think, with the benefit of hindsight, we'll look back at this ESPN deal and say, that might be the biggest deal in the history of wrestling, Jeff. What say you?
And look, everything we know how things can turn on a dime, but I don't even know how you can slide the word in there, might. Because when you drill it down, and I don't think it's me and you. I always, and I'm almost defer to you. You always, like my finance guy, been with me since I was 18. He can always give the right analogy or simplify it or dumb it down for Jeff. And Conrad, you do, you got to be easy to buy from. So that means you got to be easy to understand. So you got to understand what you're selling and saying, all that kind of stuff. I don't think there's the right analogy. And the reason I say that is that if you say, okay, give it the Super Bowl analogy, folks, the Super Bowl is 1 time a year, 1 Sunday night. This is going to be 4 times a year, a Saturday and a Sunday. So Super Survivor Series goes to a 2-day event. The other ones are already there. And Conrad, it is at the end of the day, it is, I think the simple deal is, folks, WWE is now synonymous with Disney. And I know ESPN, it's interchangeable, but Disney owns ABC. So I think, yes, it's either going to be on ABC or ESPN or both. I'm going to think WrestleMania is going to slide in there on your dial tune. The events just went to another level as far as exposure. And, when you belly up on that Sunday afternoon, it's damn near a national holiday now, Super Bowl Sunday. And the reason being is that folks get together and have parties, and Doritos does this kind of deal, and Bud Light does these kind of commercials and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, Super Bowl Sunday starts around noon and kickoff until 5. Well, I think we're going to basically see the exact same thing, all the pre-show, all the post-show, the events, all the celebrities. It's just, and I didn't, Conrad, when we had that conversation a couple of days ago, and I remember I jumped in my car after we had it, I'm thinking, yeah, prices they're about to explode again.
Yes.
And so I know everybody, oh no, they can't wait. I just think people hear Super Bowl Sunday and buy that kind of ticket. You're going to have 4. It's just everything. The game has completely raised. And I'm going to say what you said, because a lot of people may or may not get that. But in NFL, you're all playing for the second contract. And unless you're a real anomaly, that third contract, it's just, you're in a different level. You are. And so this is the big ass monster contract. It's, where do they go from here? And they'll figure it out. But it's, and I'm going to say this, obviously, I work for AEW, love AEW. If you're listening to this podcast, you know my history. This is the biggest deal, in my opinion, in professional wrestling history. Period.
Well said, kind sir.
Can you disagree? Can you disagree? I'm curious. Like it just, guys, WrestleMania is on network television.
No, I mean, my dad is going to watch it. You know, respectfully, my dad has Peacock, but he's not going out of his way to watch any PLEs. But if it's on ESPN, he's going to check it out. So,
well, the
casuals,
my bad, the tailwind of it,
yes,
the promotion, you're going to see.
It'll be all over ESPN. It'll be all over a Sports Center, Disney. All of their other properties. And yes, to your point, Disney. Me and you talked about this. We've always sort of freestyled forever. I mean, look at what, you know, Orlando did for the Harry Potter franchise. Jeez. Like, it's making as much money as ever right now, and it's because of the theme park. WWE is positioned to have their own theme park, their own rides, their own merch, their own Hall of Fame. Like, all of that is an opportunity to be in that Disney vertical. It's going to get crazy, and I'm here for it. It's great for the industry. It's great for everyone. It's not just good for WWE. It's good for TNA. It's good for AEW. It's good for AAA. It's good for New Japan, because this is going to make wrestling more, quote unquote, legitimate than anything we've seen in a long, long time, I think.
Rising tides lift all ships. I think that's why I'm so damn excited. I couldn't wait to do this pod. And this is one of the reasons, is just kind of, you know, we had the ESPN announcement. Now we're going to have this, you know, this UFC discussion we're about to have. You know, the numbers, just shit. What is Forbidden Door? The fourth largest gross in AEW history? Like, the business is good.
No. The fourth largest gross in wrestling history. Yeah, non-WWE wrestling history. So when you remove WWE from the equation, the show that has sort of flown under the radar, that as you and I are talking, is 13 days away, and nobody's really making a big fuss about it right now online, which I think is puzzling, is the fourth most successful non-WWE show of all time.
I mean, come on.
How do you not get excited about that?
Yeah, well, just that's why I'm going back to the industry. Got home from church yesterday. You did a couple of errands around here. We'll probably have to get to, you know, Karen's on IR right now, and we'll get to that conversation. But I went to the gym, Conrad, and people were talking about my buddies, and we got into the ESPN conversation, and they were just like, no, wait a. And I don't know, Conrad, I was going to ask you that. Did the messaging or did the online audience take it in a different direction? But there was confusion. I think
they did it on purpose, if I'm honest with you.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's plenty of reason to correct it. So why not go ahead and allow people to go sign up for ESPN Plus? If they could pick up some low-hanging fruit for a few weeks or months before it becomes apparent that you don't have to have it. Because I don't think ESPN is sunsetting the Plus. So if people think, oh, well, if I don't want to miss it, I better get this. Why would you say, oh, no, don't give us your money. You don't have to do that. Like, there's no reason to do that. So I think it was strategic.
Yeah. But yesterday, the conversation just went through the roof. And I'm like, like Forbidden Door, super successful. I think I termed it right yesterday. I said fourth most successful show. Yeah. Outside of WWE walls. But it just, the business continues to amaze me. And if you're listening to this podcast, you know that heck, my family goes back to 1946. In the last 10 years, Conrad, would you say the explosion has not slowed down? Maybe I may be going back too far, but yeah, you know what I mean.
I want to take a minute here and talk about the UFC news. I don't know if you've seen Dana White on his Instagram. Have you seen this photo?
I have not.
Silva hit it. That's what it looks like when you sign a $7.7 billion deal. Dana White celebrating that UFC has announced a $1.1 billion average annual value for 7 years. This is because UFC is now going to be on Paramount Plus. It is a part of the Paramount family, which means there will be some events on CBS. Ding dong, pay-per-view is dead. I mean, for years and years, Vince McMahon was the king of pay-per-views with Don King. And then later, the UFC became the pay-per-view juggernaut. And if you've been a UFC fan for a long time, and I count myself among them, you've probably seen and at least heard reports that their pay-per-view buys had been dwindling. And you want to talk about an about face, you get the revenue locked down and guaranteed. You're no longer hoping you can promote well enough to sell enough. Now it's all included. Respectfully, Paramount Plus was sucking hind teat in the streaming game. And now all the UFC fans, they're going to gravitate to it. This is the exact same methodology that Nick Khan used for WWE to allow Peacock to not just bleed money. Of course, one day removed from the Peacock announcement that WWE is going to ESPN, Peacock announced, "Hey, we're raising our prices," because they know all those WWE fans, they're headed for the entrance. They're headed for the doors. So WWE's on ESPN, and now UFC is on CBS and Paramount Plus, and it's guaranteed. What I think is interesting is two things, Jeff. I want to talk about whether or not you think this is the end of pay-per-view, because as we're talking about it, Raj Giri is pointing out on Twitter, since you and I have been live and recording, that the TKO president, Mark Shapiro, was on CNBC this morning. And when he was asked about why pay-per-view is an antiquated model, he says, what's on pay-per-view anymore? A few boxing events that start at midnight, some movies on DirecTV. It's a real about face. And even AEW, we've seen they've started to offer their pay-per-views through Amazon, but we've heard the rumor and innuendo that maybe Fight was struggling. It does feel like at this point, AEW and boxing, they're some of the last guys standing in the pay-per-view biz. But knowing the relationship that AEW has with Warner Brothers Discovery, you got to wonder, are they going to try to get their pay-per-views either on HBO Max or the Discovery app? We'll have to stay tuned for that. But my goodness, pay-per-view is done with the UFC. Did you ever think that day would come, Jeff?
If we had sit down and had kind of a roundtable discussion, I think the natural evolution of these, and I'm glad you led with that, because Paramount this is where to kind of dive in. You think Larry Ellison wanted to, I think that's his first name. You think Ellison wanted to make a big splash? They just completed the acquisition. Skydance, that whole deal with Sumner Redstone and dating back and Viacom and when you kind of know that history, and us being on Spike, I did a bunch of research way back in the day, which brought me up to speed and just how the companies kind of came together. And then, Yellowstone, and they've had a lot of success with some hit shows, but for lack of a better word, they got out of the Bellator business. They got out of the boxing business. I have some friends that were integral part of not just Bellator, but Showtime and all that. So in a lot of ways, they had gotten completely out of the fight game for sure, in sports in a little way. And when you kind of look at, all right, how's a streaming service going to take their game to another level? Peacocks and just all that. And went, okay, boy. And when the news came out, you just kind of sit back and say, TKO, they have a $7 billion deal with Paramount. I don't know the exact numbers or the approximate numbers that TKO has with ESPN, with Netflix, and it's all the fight game. They're getting in business with the boxing world. TKO is, and the Saudis. Damn, Conrad, it is kind of fascinating to watch how things are going through. But I think your question is, and I'm trying to stay on point because so many things are going, because the UFC news is so fresh. But look at the all-in numbers of AEW. It tells me the old fundamentals of the industry are, if you create an event that people want to see, there are no excuses that will do. They're going to find a way to watch it. But the maturity or the brand, as it matures, UFC has been rocking and rolling in pay-per-view world. And better than I do, Conrad, would it be, what year did they really explode? 02, 03, 04. I'm going back, but
over 05 is when it blew up.
Okay. So we're at the 20-year mark. And so I'll say their audience is kind of aged out. And so Paramount, the timing of new acquisitions and a lot of money, obviously a boatload of money, and they definitely need to make a big splash, because when you look at Netflix, the streamer, they're in the NFL business now. They're in the WWE business. Netflix isn't going to slow down. They're going to stay in the live event business. And you look at Peacock, and then ESPN and WWE and all kinds of sports. Paramount needed something. So those two coming together at the right time, I guess you could say, created the Dana White cigar shot. Wouldn't you agree, Conrad? The timing of it all, it's Paramount needed something big. They got it.
The value of the deal, Jeff, 7-year deal, 1.1 per year, billion with a B. So it's a $7.7 billion deal, right?
Yep.
You want to guess the market cap of Paramount? 6.6.
Get out of here.
The value of the UFC deal, according to Luke Thomas, is more than the whole company's worth. We're talking about Paramount pushing all their chips to the middle. This is the definition of all in. Fella, we're going to give your outfit a contract that's worth more than we are. That's commitment right there.
So on CBS and their whole, or Paramount / it's one and the same, is going to be branded. TKO is sitting, which means, and TKO has a hefty investment in the wrestling business. It's all good for wrestling.
It's all great for wrestling.
Because I'm a wrestling guy, so that my brain goes there. But man, oh man, you can have all kinds of thoughts and opinions, but at the end of the day, is this global? Paramount
that's a great question. I do want to point out that they're careful in the phrasing. So I want to dive down into that. They're not saying that they're giving $1.1 billion in cash per year. They're careful to say $1.1 billion average annual value for 7 years. So when you hear average annual value, understand the wordsmithing there. It's not 1.1 in year one. It's going to build. So they will, what I call stair step. So small business owners who have started a business from scratch are probably familiar with this concept when they're starting a new business and they go rent space. So they'll say, hey, I'll pay you $4,000 a month the first year and $4,500 the second year and $5,000 the third year. You're trying to deliver to that landlord, hey, you're going to get all your money that you want from me. I just need to build up to it so I can get my business going. So that's probably the way it's structured when they use the phrase average annual value for 7 years. But notice that they say value. They don't say cash, Jeff. So I believe, and nobody's told me this is just brand new news. I'm just reading it and reading between the tea leaves, that when they say value, it's because they're going to say, we're going to promote you on our CBS football games. We're going to promote you on our CBS primetime. We're going to be running commercials on CBS in our primetime categories to promote Paramount Plus and your UFC events. So UFC on Paramount Plus, UFC on CBS, we're going to give you a lot of advertising value as part of that. So I think they would call that in-kind advertising. The idea being, we may say, hey, our rack rate or our rate card on this ad is, I'm making it up, $100,000. And we're going to give you 10 of those reads this week. So there's $1 million. Now, they're not actually going to give the UFC or TKO $1 million, but they're going to give them $1 million worth of ad value. So I don't think it's actual cash on hand, 1.1 billion per year that's going there. But no matter how you slice it, this is a home run. But you need this sort of phrasing so you can get Wall Street pumped up and we can jack that stock price up. Don't you think?
Let me ask you, Conrad.
And if you're wondering, the stock's up 7.76% today.
Well, yeah. So
it's up $12.67.
Yep,
the shares are at 175 right now. So just the news of this report and floating 7.7 gets all the headlines, and you get all the Tom, Dick, and Harry investors to start directing some capital there. Everybody's talking about the deal, so it's an easy sell if you're a guy who's trying to churn. So, yeah, you're up almost 8% the day of, just hours after the announcement. It's got to be a big deal. I mean, right now, if you're wondering, by the way, this puts TKO at a market cap of $35 billion. $35 billion, Jeff, is the market cap of TKO.
Oh, Ari's smiling big time when On Location delivers his packages every week.
I feel like on some level, you know, if your dad were here, he's an old country guy like my dad. He might say something like, "Them boys are shitting in high cotton."
Yeah.
That's an old Southern phrase right there, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. He used to have like the chains that Lawler would take to the ring, but my dad always have a chain and he'd pull it out of his pocket. And that was one of his kind of nervous habits. He'd twirl it around and twirl it right and then left and right and left. He'd say that. He'd walk over, get him a new chew, find that old nasty cup, sit down. He'd say that, Conrad. That's the kind of line he'd deliver.
Well, these days, if you want to feel like you're shitting in high cotton, Tushy's what you need. If your manhood feels like the Florida Panhandle this time of year, great news. You can instantly refresh yourself 15 times a day without jumping in the shower. We're talking about washing with the Tushy bidet. It's going to transform swamp butt into a dewy cloud. I'm a big believer in Tushy. Jeff's been to my house. He knows I've got these on every single toilet in the house. I've been a Tushy guy long before they were advertising here because it just makes sense. I'm not trying to be gross. I'm just saying, think about what you've been doing before. You're going to take dry toilet paper and hope that you can clean up a mess on aisle 3. That ain't going to work. You know what you need? You need to get clean with, how about one natural ingredient? Fresh water. That's what Tushy's all about. Tushy's the everyday luxury bidet that instantly transform your bathroom habits and your bottom health for life. And they've got something for everybody. Check out Cloud Plus. It automatically deodorizes the air when you sit down. My dad desperately needed that. I hooked him up. Aura is Megan's favorite. It automatically opens the seat when you enter the bathroom. But the elevated bidet collection from Tushy even gets you instant warm water that never runs cold, a soothing heated seat, and UV sterilization for next level hygiene. Did I mention that all Tushy bidets can easily attach to your existing toilet? There's no construction involved here. You don't need additional plumbing. This just fits right on top of your existing toilet. But instead of wiping endlessly with toilet paper, just let Tushy take that one natural ingredient to get you clean. We're talking fresh water. Installation simple. You're talking like 10 minutes to complete. Literally anyone can do it. And if you're on septic, and a lot of people who live in a rural area know what I'm talking about, you don't want to mess with wet wipes. It's going to be a hassle. It's going to be a process. What if you could just go hands-free? I know what you're thinking. How would you do that? Well, there's a built-in air dryer with Tushy. You sit down, you clean yourself, and then you air dry. How about that? And people who've made the switch to Tushy are using like 80% less toilet paper, which means you're not going to have any clogged toilets. You're not going to be wasting money on something that doesn't even really effectively work. But they're putting their money where their mouth is. Maybe that's not the right phrase for Tushy. But every Hello Tushy bidet comes with a 30-day hassle-free return and a 12-month warranty. But I'm telling you, once you try it, man, you're going to be hooked for life. I had our gimmick attorney, Mike Dawkins, down years ago. He loved it. He went home, he installed it. The wife, the kids, the in-laws, they were all making fun and said, this is stupid. This is silly. Then they tried it. And the kids that year asked Santa Claus for bidets. The PlayStation was second on the list. Tushy bidet was number 1. Keep your swampiest body parts fresh and cool. And for a limited time, our listeners can get 10% off their first bidet order when you use our code MyWorld at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with the promo code MyWorld.
Hey, Conrad, can I read you something?
I'd love for you to read me something, Jeff.
6 days ago on Sportico, 6, not even a full 7 days, 6 days ago. Headline, UFC eyes Netflix as Paramount Skydance deal nears close. 6 days ago. Okay.
Okay.
And 1 hour ago, Paramount stock falls on UFC deal. There could be more deals coming. Anyway, I'm just bringing this to light that the journalists in that world feels like they're jumping all over the place as well. Because
I had heard through the grapevine that the negotiation with the UFC and Netflix was quicker than a hiccup. And I think there was an assumption made on the TKO side. Again, I don't know. I don't have any inside information at all. I'm just guessing But it does stand to reason that, hey, if they're really happy with the WWE deal and we're the same parent company, let's try to get UFC over there. And I believe the number they were asking for was $1 billion. That's the rumor I'd heard, is they were looking for $1 billion. And that was a quick and fast thanks, but no thanks from Netflix. Maybe it was because of the investment they had just made. Maybe they were trying to protect their own stock and they didn't think they could forecast that out and get a return. Maybe they weren't happy with the WWE numbers. There's certainly a lot of chatter online where people are saying that those numbers are not meeting the mark. By the way, I don't know why so many WWE fans are upset with that news. They didn't leave Fox because it was a booming. I mean, this is the way it is. You negotiate a deal, and here's just the fact of it. All bad deals come to an end. So if they don't get a return on this, they will leave. I don't think even after WWE had moved all of their audience to Peacock, I still don't think Peacock was printing money for NBC Universal. I still think Peacock was in trouble. So I'm saying all that to say, yes, they got a lot of subscribers, but was it enough to net a profit? I'm not so sure. I'll leave that to the television experts to decide. But we called it last week on the program. You said, what do you make of this, Conrad? And we're talking about WWE going to ESPN. And I said, well, it means UFC's gone. There's no way they're going to stick around. They've budgeted and they're saying, hey, we're going to spend the money here instead. Little did I know, I don't think any of us would have predicted, UFC is completely abandoning the pay-per-view model. I thought when they went fishing, I knew they weren't going to, I shouldn't say I knew. I didn't think they were going to Amazon based on some of the other things that Amazon had laid out and contracted for the future. So I thought, well, Netflix, if they say no, where else can they go? I never imagined it would be Paramount, but what an opportunity it is for CBS and for Paramount to add real value and a whole new audience. I think those are great deals, but I'm super impressed by TKO management for being able to create this kind of leverage and deliver this kind of shareholder value. But when we're talking about that, it brings up a question that all wrestling fans are talking about right now today as we're recording on August 11th about Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux. We talked about this last week, that the new book was coming out. I've picked up the book. I haven't had a chance to start it. I will have it knocked out by the time we record next week. But I'm big fans of these guys in real life. And I didn't think it made much sense last week when we were talking that they would leave. I just assumed that it was going to be a bit for Unreal. We're going to work the boys. We're going to have a big surprise. I just assumed he would show up at TNA last night. I just assumed he's going to show up this Saturday night at Triple Mania. I just assumed maybe there'd be some other place like a GCW show where he's going to work outside the tent, do a Brian Pillman loose cannon thing and come back. That's what I thought. That's what I expected. That's kind of what I hoped for. But now I'm not so sure. A new deal was on the table for Karrion Kross and Scarlett earlier this week, according to Mike Johnson, who says they've now been moved to the alumni section of the roster. And we heard last week that internally they'd been moved off the roster, but I thought, I think they're just setting up something. But Karrion Kross actually went on his YouTube channel and said something like he expressed interest in renegotiating in early January with WWE. He said something along the lines of, I think it's crazy, preposterous for anyone to think that I wouldn't want to be here or go somewhere else. It's frustrating because, you can express your interest to stay and be here and do things, but I'm not going to beg. I've made it very clear. So many months have gone by and I've never had a single conversation about it until recently. And I don't even feel the conversation I had recently was an actual serious one. The conversation made me really angry because I just didn't feel like it was a real conversation. Somebody contacted me and we briefly discussed. It was a very short conversation and the conversation was done and there wasn't really anything discussed of any substance. And that really, actually it didn't make me angry and it didn't make me upset. It just really profoundly disappointed me. And that makes me feel like, oh shit, this might actually be real. And maybe it's not a storyline. But Dave Meltzer's coming out and he's pretty much saying, I think it is. He says he's doing a lot of media because his book came out on Tuesday. The people who are doing interviews with him are being told it's not WWE that's sending him on the tour, it's ECW Press. And they've basically said you cannot ask any questions about his contract situation, his WWE situation. So lots of people, myself included, this time yesterday, I'd have pretty much bet anything I owned that, this is a work. Don't get caught up on this. It's going to be a great story. It's going to be a big reveal, but don't invest a lot of time, effort, and energy into it. Just let the story play out. It'll be fun. But now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I've allowed myself to buy into the idea that this is real. Because if you go back and you take a look at what Endeavor did with the UFC when they acquired it all those years ago, the pay for the performers got cut drastically. They're trying to deliver shareholder value. Guys were making less money. They could no longer have sponsors on their trunks and things like that. It was a different company after that. And we've talked about it a little bit before, Jeff. I think you could argue this might be the most crowded roster in a long time. You've got so much star power, so many tools at your disposal. This might just be a money issue. I don't think it's necessarily he wasn't offered anything. I mean, even Mike Johnson is saying a new deal's on the table. I think they're just far off on money. So I'm wondering what is next for him. For a variety of reasons, I don't know that he lands in AEW. I would love to see him in Triple Mania this weekend. I think you might too. But I kind of thought he might be back in TNA, and I know they have history. That's not always smooth and silky, but there's a different management there now. I don't know. What do you think is next for Karrion Kross? And do you think, like I do, that eventually he is back and they'll reverse engineer it? And instead of this being a worked shoot, it'll be a shoot that turned into a work. That sounds silly to even say. I hate using words like that, but that's kind of the way this feels to me. He winds up back there eventually, maybe like a Matt Hardy situation 20 years ago. What do you think, Jeff?
I have not followed it as closely as you have, but if he was given the ability to write a book, that was under WWE's watch. Here's what I like most of all. It is become a story that people are engaged in. And with Raw, SmackDown, NXT, TNA, AAA, he ain't going nowhere. And I think the deal's already done and agreed upon, and they're navigating this worked, shoot, worked, regardless. It's one and the same. The Seth Rollins situation, that they are, and look, I'm a big believer in go back to Jesus, way well. I didn't come up with it. I'm mirroring what I was taught in the territory, and they were mirroring what they were taught. They're blurring the lines as much as possible, and I'm all for it. Do I know what's real and what's not real? No, but I'm damn sure intrigued and trying to learn and observe that they've got people engaged, and Kevin has had a lot of TV time over the last however long, and getting people engaged in engagement. And it goes without saying, the Brock stuff and the we've talked about it the last couple of weeks, pushing people's buttons and using, look, me and Kevin Sullivan, not wrestler Kevin Sullivan, production Kevin Sullivan, we did a little thing behind the scenes at TNA like 08 or 09 and blurring the lines. I think it's great, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it. And and that's what I'm saying. Like, when you say it's a storyline, that just kind of gives the credence that, I almost want to say it's disrespective, but they are operating in the sphere of the professional wrestling industry, and they're doing a pretty damn good job of blurring the lines. And I think that's good for business.
I think it's great for business. I do wonder how much of this is, I mean, it feels like it's just a financial situation and they'll get together. But
Well,
as you're saying, you think they already have.
I think it's a done deal. But how do we like our television, our reality television? Nice and scripted. I think this is going to be a potentially very intriguing Unreal segment or storyline or thread, because I think when you bring that into which we have, it's into we used to have Nitro and Thunder and A show and B show and C show and Saturday morning superstars and challenge and all this. Well, Unreal is now shoulder programming. What is Unreal designed to do? Point toward building the brand. I think this is a story that's playing out that we're going to continue to see. Oh shit, I remember, oh, yeah. Remember when Kevin Cross and he did this and he went on the book tour and he said this and this and this. Hey, man, let's look in the writer's room and see how they came up with this stuff. Man, they got us. I think it's all on some level, it all goes together. And I'm here for it. That's a damn compliment.
It is a compliment. By the way, Jeff, since we've been recording, I can't believe this is real. We just got some breaking news about ESPN. Yahoo Sports is reporting that ESPN and Fox have announced a plan to bundle their direct-to-consumer offerings. The agreement will allow consumers to purchase the two services bundled together starting October 2nd for $39.99 a month. And I think what they're going to call this is Fox One. So I don't know what to make of that, but it is interesting that the TV business keeps a changing.
Oh, hold on. You've heard it's called Fox One and it's a ESPN Disney bundle with Fox?
That's what Yahoo Sports says.
Well, but calling it Fox One and letting that's interesting to me. It's and I don't know how they would brand it, but that's wow. Yeah, Conrad. And here's where the analyst and the numbers and the guys who do all the valuation, all that, like how they arrive at something, because Jesus, that thing's going to generate a lot of money, because bundling those two together gets you. Does it get you all the goods? I'm just thinking about football season coming up and the numbers and all that. Like, what do you really need? We do the ESPN, the NFL package, so Cody can watch all the Steeler games, right, Conrad?
Yeah.
And what is that YouTube? What's it called? YouTube. Well, it's where you get all the games.
Sunday Ticket.
So, okay. Do you know Sunday Ticket? That's a pretty good price tag.
Deal. Yeah.
It doesn't cover preseason games. Me and Karen looked at each other because we wanted to make sure. And I said, hey, and she said, I got it. She chat GPT. It says it clearly in there. Does not include preseason games. I'm like, my God. Cody wasn't happy he didn't get to watch his Steelers.
Hey, what did you think about Tony Khan's team, the Jaguars, hitting a 70-yard field goal over the weekend?
My boy in the gym this morning, because he follows the Jags and he knows AEW and all that. I said, I think that boy just kicked himself right into a nice contract. 70 yards, preseason or not. That's a good God, 70-yard field goal. Hey, athletes get bigger, stronger, faster every year.
I can't believe we're going to get here, but we're going to talk about No Surrender 2005. Let's go back and talk about late June 05. There's a report in the Observer about how there's a lot of people who are upset with you about what happened at the Slammiversary pay-per-view. If you haven't checked out the Slammiversary show, it's in the archives, but the short version is Jeff's side of what happened that night isn't really about not being champion or doing a job. It was about being booked to lose the second ever King of the Mountain match while also being nicknamed King of the Mountain. And I think it's interesting when you read the Observer, man, and he just goes on and on and on talking about you. You could tell whoever was giving him his information was not a Double J fan, but it's almost like he has positioned you through the years to have a reputation of, being a carny or whatever. You're the last of the carnies or whatever. And I think that's funny because that is a newsletter narrative, but I don't think I've ever heard anything of the sort from the guys and gals who were actually in the business. Did that ever bother you at all, even a little bit, the narrative that the dirt sheets had that was sort of anti-Jeff all those years?
Did it bother me?
Yes.
No. And I've kind of said this multiple different times in multiple different ways. I had the blessing to understand that going to all those shows, all those years, first 7 years of my life, the boo birds that I would have, oh, Jeff sucks, this and that. When you meet them at a restaurant or even in the back alley, and 30 minutes ago, they were dog cussing you, and they were the guys that not only wanted to autograph, hey, man, where are you going afterwards? Are y'all going to eat? Can we join? Like, that's kind of I call it the character, the role I played on. I didn't mind being the heel. And look, it's the nature of our business. A lot of people can say, okay, he's a heel in the ring, which means he's got to be an asshole to Karrion. There's no doubt about it. He's probably a real prick to his kids. Oh, and forget about it. You know, if you meet him at a restaurant, he's sure to cuss you out. I mean, there was just the blurring of the line. So it never really bothered me. The thing that I found, and I'm going to say this with diplomacy, is that, quote unquote, the journalist of our business, they more than anybody had a real difficult time of understanding of blurring of the lines, and they couldn't understand that, okay, Jeff took money out of his own pocket to start this business. So he would rather have a reputation than profit. That doesn't make any kind of sense on any level when you ask anybody that. No, you can't stay in business if you're not generating. And in this particular episode, we're talking about what's kind of even more missed than a lot of things, because if you get granular on it, but you back up, this was in the period that we had done the Asylum for 2.5 years. We had done Fox Sports Net, and we'd come to an agreement that we were going all Fox Sports Net, and we were in the process of negotiating. Dave even has it during this timeline of reporting that we were going to do a time buy with Spike TV. That was never, ever once discussed. So I say that with all due respect, in that you said whoever is giving his information, yeah, it was false, but also just kind of being misguided on the story behind the story, and even giving half attempt. So what's really going on from a business perspective? Jeff is the single largest shareholder of the company. And that's, you know, I've had several different people, you know, that have listened to this pod come up and say, now, I think I heard you right. Did you really say when you left, you were still the single largest shareholder? Yep. Well, why'd you leave? Well, guys, business is business. Looking at the future. Anyway, Conrad, I kind of got off track there, but no, it didn't bother me, because I understand from a very early age. And I'm not saying, oh, these folks are marks. It's no, they're not inside the tent. Like right now, Conrad, me and you were not inside. And even Sportico said, oh, yep, UFC is headed to Netflix. Well, they were just trying to do the simple surface stuff, because WWE is Netflix, just like you said. The reality is that door had been probably shut weeks, if not months ago. And here we are 6 days later, they sign $1 billion deal with those guys. So journalists, diplomatically, they just, and they're not supposed to, they're not inside the tent. They don't know the real story, and that's okay. They're not supposed to do. That's why business is run the way they are. You know, if it was easy and everybody knew every decision and why it was made. But I will say I have expected better out of journalists, and that's on me. My expectations many times were much too high.
Well, your expectations are never too high with Magic Spoon. You've heard us talk about it for a long time. They make high protein, zero sugar cereal and treats reinvented from your childhood. You can literally taste the nostalgia. It tastes just like your childhood favorite cereals, but without all the sugar. And now Magic Spoon has launched a brand new high protein granola. And true to that Magic Spoon promise, it's packed with protein and oh so crunchy. Magic Spoon's brand new granola packs in 13 grams of protein and 0 added sugars. They come in great flavors like dark chocolate almond, honey almond, and peanut butter. And I've bragged about them for a while, but I want to do it again now. Magic Spoon's high protein treats are crispy, crunchy, airy, and an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. They come in mouth-watering flavors like marshmallow, chocolate peanut butter, and dark chocolate. I love the double chocolate. I crushed one yesterday. It's good every time. I actually got our gimmick attorney, Mike Dawkins, on the train with this, and he took a picture of an empty wrapper, sent it to me, and said, "You son of a bitch, these are amazing." Go get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/myworld, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/myworld for $5 off. And listen, I know I just told you can go to Amazon or your grocery store. Hook a brother up, help the show out. Go right now and save yourself some money. You can get the best deals and support the show by going to magicspoon.com/myworld. You will not regret it. Double J drives around, and in his Tahoe, in the glove compartment, there's 2 of these at all times. I know, I've checked. Go right now, magicspoon.com/myworld. Jeff, let's talk.
Infamous words of Scott Steiner, brother. He'd put it in his voice. Got to get your protein in. Magic Spoon does that for you.
Magic Spoon, check it out, man. It's good stuff. Hey, I want to talk about Richard Scrushy. Comes out in 05 here. My man's acquitted. You know, they had him on trial, and they thought they had him hemmed up, but nope. Richard Scrushy, old Alabama boy from Selma. He took 2 companies public, and once upon a time, the narrative in the Observer is that he funded $1.6 million from Health South in order to support and prop up TNA. Does that number sound right? 1.6?
The operating line of credit, I don't think he'd mind me sharing with this today. The opening one, and Kurt Myers, my accountant, literally just said this the other day because when he got in the car, he goes, "Did you take all that in?" Because he knows I am. But anyway, the original line of credit was 3.5, and he said, "Jeff, we'll talk about it. We'll make it happen in the future, but go to work." So,
and he gave you access to $3.5 million when you needed it.
Yes, sir. That was the opening line, and just, you know, that's why, you know, the story behind the story behind the story. The original set of circumstances, TNA was more than well funded because you're a business guy. Health South was I think a top 10. I think he was a 3rd highest paid CEO in the country. He did all kinds of different businesses, and a lot of people were like, "Hey, how'd you meet him?" I met him through the music business, through a music contact that. His son was a wrestling fan, Richard's son, and Richard loved the music business. And that's how I originally got to know him. Flew down from Nashville to Birmingham on his plane a couple of times, just as buddies. And he got us tickets to the Tennessee-Alabama game. But yeah, I mean, obviously, what a journey that gentleman, my man Richard, has been on to this day. Boy, oh boy, you know, you never know what life's going to throw at you. But yes, 05, he was acquitted on everything. Conrad, say that again. Read that, because I think.
Yeah, he's acquitted.
Yeah.
And by the way, back then, just in case you're wondering, Health South had over 2,000 locations in all 50 states and several foreign countries. And in the late 90s, they had annual revenues passing $4.5 billion.
It's in the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s. So in modern dollars, that's like $9 billion. So their annual, not their market cap, but annual revenues. Now, again, we're not saying net profit. We're just saying how much money's coming in the door. How about $9 billion a year? And Richard Scrushy, an Alabama boy, was at the helm, and he loved his wrestling. I love that story, Jeff.
But you know how on the pod and folks will, hey, give me your Mount Rushmore, or give me this set of circumstances or favorite matches. But, you know, Conrad, I've learned through, I'll just say kind of the podcast family, but really specifically how you have framed things through the years to really go down a road. And you know, in 1995, when me and Road Dogg walked out, you've put it very, you know, Jeff, what happens if you didn't walk out? Because when you walked out, yeah, you were creative and this and that, but you really walked out of that hit song with a bullet, and you were IC champ and had done it a couple of times, whatever it was. Where you were headed had you not walked out. A huge what if. And then Bash at the Beach, another what if. I think the biggest what if in my career, and I'd love for you to challenge this, what if Health South hadn't have been in the financial situation that it got in? What if Richard would have continued to fund it?
There's no telling, right?
Well, the history of TNA would have been radically different.
It would have been, respectfully, AEW 20 years prior.
That's interesting to put it that way.
Well, no, I mean, you disagree?
No, I don't. I just how you work.
If you had the Health South opportunity, you wouldn't have had to toil away on pay-per-view, I don't think, on Wednesdays on a pay-per-view model. You wouldn't have had to do time buys on Friday afternoons on Fox Sports. You wouldn't have had, just having I mean, listen, let's make no mistake about it. You don't think that there were television companies who were interested in being in business with Tony Khan because he owned an NFL team? Like, listen, there's lots of people out there who are, I mean, this sounds awful the way I'm going to say it. There's a bunch of billionaires, ain't but 32 of them got an NFL team.
I love you for that.
So I'm just saying, like, when you talk about the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, like it's one thing to be a billionaire, but then you have to be in a special club of billionaires to even be considered to own a league, and then to own a team, and then to be invited into that fold. Like, you're in rarefied air. And once upon a time, it looks like Richard Scrushy and Health South were headed in that trajectory. Now, we know, unfortunately, that didn't happen. But if it would have happened, I think you take a flyer. If a guy comes in and he says, hey, I own an NFL franchise and I got an idea, that gets a meeting, if nothing else. Now, you got to deliver the goods. I'm not taking anything away from Tony Khan, but I'm saying it will at least open doors. And I think if Scrushy and the trajectory of Health South would have continued, man, it would have opened doors that previously you would have been in rooms you may not have previously been welcome in.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And he was headed that way in the music industry as well.
Yes.
Yeah. There was a lot of things, Richard. He loves entertainment. Yeah. It's life. It's really fascinating to go down that road. But nonetheless, very grateful for the Carters. And wow, TNA still rocking and rolling in 2025. Started all those many years ago by a handshake agreement in Birmingham.
You know, I got my ear to the Underground Railroad here in Alabama, so I hear things. I'd be willing to bet that old Richard Scrushy's got a big second act in him coming sooner rather than later.
I love it.
I'll just say that.
Hope so.
Hey, I do want to mention there's some news and notes here from 05, and we're talking about what ifs. Here's some what ifs. There was a what if that Howard Stern might be looking to bring a television version of his radio show to Spike. Of course, you'll remember Howard Stern back then had the #1 radio show, maybe of all time. Monster. You know, at its peak, we're talking 20 million subscribers or 20 million daily listeners. There's a report now that this will be his last year with Sirius XM. I'm talking about in 2025. And people are saying that the listenership's down to 125,000, and maybe Stern is looking to go to HBO or he's looking to go to Netflix. We'll see how that shakes out in 2025. But back then, his E contract, where they had a watered down version of his radio show late night on cable, maybe he was looking to go to Spike. Was there ever a concern for you that that could affect what you guys were doing with TNA? That Howard Stern being such a force, he may actually take your TV time?
No.
Okay.
No. That was the thing when you going back in those times and you really understanding the DNA. And Kevin chatted not long ago, but we'll just call it Spike, the network for men. The evolution of where Viacom was taking that brand was, it goes without saying, the UFC set of circumstances. They had the WWE and knew, the chess move made there. But no, we would have welcomed that men programming, male programming, get those eyeballs up. There was so much momentum in the Viacom family to go after because they kind of come off the heyday of MTV. But man, there was a lot of high hopes on that programming model.
Let's talk a little bit about New Japan. It's written here that there's an idea with New Japan. I guess Inoki's son, Simon, was trying to get, what's that?
Son-in-law.
Yeah. Was trying to get an American G1 climax. So we've always heard about the G1. Maybe there was an idea of doing a G1 with TNA here in America. How far did that get? I mean, we know that it didn't actually happen, but I bring this up because I think around this same time, Noah was saying that you guys could use Kobashi in between tours. Kenta Kobashi had a reputation amongst the hardcore fans that he was the absolute greatest living wrestler. So that could have been a major thing for you guys. But I think as the story goes, according to the Observer, because you were in conversations with New Japan, it became a political issue. So Kobashi doesn't wind up coming to TNA. Instead, Kobashi, Noah specifically, does a deal with Ring of Honor. And that's how we wind up getting Samoa Joe and Kobashi that all of us hardcore tape traders absolutely love and still celebrate to this day. But it could have almost happened in TNA, But I guess maybe you were thinking, hey, if we get the G1, that's better. But in the end, neither happened. What happened here, Jeff?
Well, we were cultivating international relationships literally from day one. I mean, you go back and look at the Asylum shows and Antonio Pena, and we've gone into detail in the archives. He flew up and had our dinners at PF Chang's, and the early ones we had a translator there to make sure we were understanding. But I wanted a international relationships with a Japan organization and a Lucha, a Mexican organization, and would have loved to figure out something. But the UK scene in 2002, 3, 4, it just wasn't near developed as it is now. And India didn't really have it. Germany had some, but no. So when you're looking at Japan through the years and having that understanding, and I went to Japan with SWS, which is Tenru, which is an offshoot. I'm by far not the Japanese expert, but I'm well aware and always tried to look through the lens on what's the best long term, how do we make this work. And I think Simon was the one who had originally reached out, and so we were all for how do we create a deal. And this was kind of one of those things that obviously wasn't our decision, but we started and stopped. But in the not so distant future, Kurt, and others, the Dudleys, I mean, we had a very, very healthy relationship with New Japan, but these were the very early stages.
Let's talk a little bit about a camera crew. It's written here that at the last tapings, there was a camera crew there filming a TV reality show pilot on Jeff and Jerry Jarrett. While actually that could make for fascinating TV if they were with those two 24 hours a day, the odds of it going anywhere aren't good. What do you remember about this? Did you do a pilot with your dad? This is crazy.
It's funny. I got a text from the guy 3 or 4 days after Unreal debuted and said, "Hey, they're doing the show that we were thinking about." And I was just like, oh my, I hadn't heard from this guy in a while. Look, Conrad, can you imagine my dad being pitched that show? But it was a father-son working in a wrestling business that it was very apparent that our opinions and thought processes were just what a father and son would be. We come from different generations and different experiences and different mindsets. But I think we shot a day and a half, maybe, and that was it. It was just like, hey, we're running a business here. This ain't gonna work. That I think that was in essence game, set, match. But that was the genesis of it. Jeff and Jerry behind the scenes of TNA.
We're excited to talk about the pay-per-view, but I do want to ask one more thing before we get there. It says a funny Jeff Jarrett story. Behind the scenes, there's a clear deal going on with Jeff trying to rally a lot of wrestlers against Scott D'Amore and the current booking committee since they decided against giving him back the title. Generally, the Jarrett position is a good one to be in, but Jarrett isn't getting much sympathy from anyone, even longtime friends who see through him. The funny story is Jarrett tried to claim Raven. He was the reason Raven was named champion, saying when he found out he wasn't winning, he told everyone involved that Raven had to win because they were the only two people in the company who could be champions. Somehow I'm skeptical, and with good reason. It really went down that way. Jeff, I mean this as respectfully as I can. Does Dave think you're a fucking mark?
And I'm going to say this. You have to, and look, I've had, I don't say a lot, but I've had plenty of conversations with Dave through the years, but I don't think he's the only one, because there's a lot of folks that, hey, Jesus, I mean, up until the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, that's Jerry's kid. That's the promoter's kid. Just if that is your set point, because remember, he's writing newsletters on Lawler and Jarrett and the territory days and that, and he's been writing about it forever. And so I think his set point on myself, along with the days of being able to decipher, because look, we've talked about it ad nauseum. TNA, in the startup days, the Wild Wild West, the political, it wasn't easy to keep a roster of guys that you couldn't even give long-term contracts. And when I say long-term, I'm saying a year. I'm not saying 5 years. I'm saying they were being paid on a per day basis, and all the political nature. And look, at this point, up to this point, we had no TV deal. We did the time buy, so we were plugging along. So I got the heat and I signed up for it from every angle, from the talent angle, from the creative angle, from the business angle, which means payoffs, all the structure, all of it came on me. So Dave was getting not one slant of bad reports, but multiple slants. And I think in a lot of ways, it created truly in his brain, Jeff's a freaking idiot. And I mean that out of all due respect. I think that's all the reporting he got, as opposed to step back and say what I've said, and you've cleared it up, or we've cleared it up on this podcast. Let's really look at this logically. Jeff put up his own money, and he is an owner. Now, if that ain't his set point to make decisions, I would be an idiot. But they glossed over that and had in their mind Bob Carter. And that's okay. Well, Bob Carter's burning money, and Bob Carter's doing this, and Bob Carter's doing that. Well, until 2009, late 2009, until the power play that went awry, me and Bob were completely aligned. And it was during this time frame, okay, the Spike deal and Bob, they're coming at us, and we're going to turn this thing around on this one deal. So, yes, Dave looked at me, I think, as a kid that didn't know what he was doing. And I would you disagree with that?
Well, I think Dave, for as much as he tries to talk about business, he can't help it. He'd rather talk about wrestling. And I get that. And I understand that. And I appreciate that. But to me, it comes off like a fan perspective. Like when he's continually writing in this era, like, hey, it's clear they're trying to frame Jeff Jarrett as their biggest star. Well, I mean this as respectfully as I can. No disrespect to anybody else involved. If you're not the biggest star, who is? Are we going to suggest that it was Raven? Don't get me wrong. Raven had a heck of a run in ECW, but respectfully, that he never enjoyed the same success in the WWF or WCW that you did. I don't think that can be debated. So, like, if we're just going to remove our emotions from it and our taste from it, because maybe for whatever reason, he dismissed, and I do think there is a Memphis bias that we get lost in a lot of this.
Yep.
And I think he probably said, oh, well, he's out of Memphis and it's his daddy's kid and blah, blah, blah. It's like, wait a minute. Who was the biggest star at that point, if not you? This is pre-Kurt Angle being there.
Yes.
So, I mean, you could say Christian Cage, fresh off of WWE TV, he's about to come in. But like outside of that, what else would you even say? Like it's clearly you. And more importantly, and we've beat this drum for years on this program. It's the same reason that Vern Gagne made Larry Zbyszko the world champion. It was his son-in-law. He knew he couldn't be lured away to go to work for Vince when everybody else could. So you were a realist in saying, hey, I'm offering guys an opportunity and a few $100. I'm not offering them guaranteed contracts and a lifetime of fame and fortune. I don't have it in my business model. The revenues aren't there. I'm a startup. I'm trying to get there, but I'm not leaving. I can't leave. I'm all in. I got to recapture my investment. So yeah, I'm going to get on TV, but if you're beating me like a drum in favor of someone else, where does that leave us if they leave? I think that's what is just lost on everybody, but they get so caught up in matches and wanting their 5-star matches that they just fucking forget, like, it's a business, guys.
Yeah.
Right? Am I wrong?
No, not at all. You're spot on. I knew you had a little comedy and flavor to it, but that at the very core of it, that's what, but it still happens to this day. And that's okay. That the online discourse, I get it. And it's looked at as performance and matches and storylines and angles and all that. And that's what it's supposed to be. But at the end of the day, like the Karrion Kross thing, at the end of the day, guys, we are generating engagement, which revenue will follow. And so the whole thing, and I think you were going to circle back on this, me and Scott D'Amore and all this, you got to remember that in 2002, I had to get approval from the Carters. I'm literally in a lot of ways a one-man show. I need an agent. And I had all kind of, I'll call it quote unquote, former wrestlers that I thought through and got pitched to me and all this. I picked Scott. I literally said, we aligned on a lot of things. I loved his mentality. To this day, I think that carried his personality traits were, all right, I'm going to roll up my sleeves. And he's like, Jeff, maybe he's like, hey, boss, if that's what you want. But I kind of disagree with you. And I'm like, good. All right, let me hear the disagree. And sometimes he'd sway me and sometimes he wouldn't. Jeremy Borash would do that. And he would have a different kind of slant on it. Dutch Mantell would have kind of a different slant on it. Russo would damn sure have a different slant on it, but all of them kind of came at it through the years with different angles, which I loved. Didn't always feel good, but but Scott was the guy. And so like what you were just saying that, oh, there's two sides and Jeff's doing all this. It's just like, what are we doing here, guys? But then I go back to Dave has to write a certain amount of words every week for him to create engagement. So that kind of narrative made his business tick. So hats off to him.
Let's talk a little bit about the big announcement here. It's going to be on the pay-per-view. There's subliminal messages here that David Sahadi's doing inside of the opening package that says Rhino's coming to TNA. TNA is coming to Spike TV in October. Someone will get gored tonight. Huge. Vince fears Jeff Jarrett. It's all fun stuff here. And then we start with a pregame show. Shocker, getting a win over Jarrell Clark. That's the pregame match. Then we jump right into Chris Harris and James Storm. We love them. America's Most Wanted against Alex Shelley and Michael Shane. They go 11-47. Kind of a thrown together tag team, but I love those guys. Alex Shelley, I felt like, man, he's going to be a really big star. Michael Shane, one of those great what ifs, I think. If he'd have hung around a little longer, he would have enjoyed so much more success, in my opinion. Next up, Sanjay Dutt wins a four corners match over Mikey Batts, Shark Boy, and Elix Skipper. You and I are unabashed Elix Skipper super fans. Man, timing is everything. And a little later, he'd have been an even bigger star. Same for Shark Boy. And shout out to Mikey Batts, who I know is living a great life in Florida and listens on a pretty regular basis. Man, you got a lot of great talent here, but I love to see one of your best buds in all of wrestling, Sanjay Dutt, getting the dub. 3-star affair. I think people who are familiar with Sanjay Dutt and his work behind the scenes and on camera with your faction, they really owe it to themselves to go see what that rascal could do bell to bell. I mean, he was so good. I mean, a real early pioneer of the X division, don't you think?
No doubt. And I would say this: why a true pioneer? Sanjay's obviously got a brain, but I recognize that way back. And I say that Jerry Lynn's got a brain. The guys that were really the pioneers of it, that understood what I was trying to convey. Hey guys, it's more than cruiserweight or light heavyweight. We want to kind of identify the brand of X Division wrestling is. It's not about weight limits. It's about no limits. And so build the high spots with a story that makes sense. But we wanted the people to go away, and we did it oftentimes in opening match, and they're chanting TNA, TNA. And that was obviously by design to get the people invested in the show. And hey, the simple way to say this, hey, you can't see that on the other channel. This is what brings me into this brand. And we did that. And another thing, Conrad, that again, we've kind of prepped for the show a couple of different times. This pay-per-view, we went off the time buy and we were headed toward Spike, but we are in an era here of TNA that we weren't doing the weekly programming. It wasn't on Fox and wasn't on Spike, obviously right in that kind of gray area, that we were setting the table for so many things. And I think you kind of look from top to bottom on the finishes here. It was all about building. And Sanjay, this match specifically, get him positioned to be a real X Division superstar that he was.
I'm excited to talk about these guys in long form sometime. Maybe we should do some profile pieces on some of their individual careers in that X Division. Apollo, another guy that we had high hopes for once upon a time, and Sonny Siaki, who was clearly inspired by The Rock, are going to pick up a win over Simon Diamond and David Young. This feels like it's sort of thrown together, but man, the match is pretty good. Those are all very capable performers. If you've never seen a David Young spine buster, go out of your way. Love throwing a little love to a Georgia boy. Go ahead.
I was just sitting there thinking the Apollo, he was Puerto Rico's version of The Rock. And if you want to see some, and I don't know if there's how much of it's online, but man, Dutch and Savio and Puerto Rico in 02, 03, 04 was red hot. Did Apollo translate to the TNA audience? No. But there was a time when Apollo was the biggest by far. I mean, Carlos Colon for years and years and years, but there was a time frame that Apollo was the biggest box office attraction on the island by far. He had magnetic charisma that really translated on that island. Didn't quite get there in TNA for multiple issues. He had some personal situations, but yeah, a good fun match that we just talked about.
Jeff, obviously you're still doing your thing at a high level, and people are just enthralled with the fact that you've somehow found the fountain of youth. But if you were to look back in your in-ring history, I'm not talking about when you really put it all together mentally and promo wise and character wise and all that. I'm just saying, ding, ding, ding. When was Jeff putting on the best matches of his career? I've heard other wrestlers say that there's a window, and I don't know how long that window is, but would you say that there's a few years that stand out to you, like from this year to that year? Man, I'd put my work right there. I would say that I was at my peak in ring. Do you have a range of years like that in mind when I sort of frame it that way?
That's a good question. The I'll call it 95 to 2000. My conditioning came easy. Like the match, the In Your House match me and Sean had. And look, we had worked in different scenarios out on the road, but we had been tag partners for the most part and all that kind of stuff. But so we had a history, but I did the singing part of that pay-per-view as well as the match. And Conrad, that it all, I hate to say how to say this, but there was a time probably 95 till WCW closed that the in-ring work came, I was just easy, but it came really easy to me. And then when I think of the Asylum years, I was much more in boss mode, in teaching mode, and so much more on my plate. Had I not kind of had the ability to go, okay, I can connect in my wrestling match and I can take care of that. I'm doing a bunch of other things. Probably from 95 to 05, Conrad, would be my window of my physical ability to just click with not too much preparation. I would guess. When me and Kurt had our matches in 2010, I surprised myself a couple of times because I'm like, okay, you got to keep up with this machine, which ain't easy. But there would be some things, and I'd go down to the studio and we're whatever highlights or all that. I'm like, okay, because working with Kurt, real challenge, very physical, go. But anyway, short answer is probably 95 to 05.
I would say that Samoa Joe and Chris Sabin here are arguably in that point of their career here for No Surrender 05. Samoa Joe in 05, in my opinion, was another effing level. That dude was outstanding. I loved watching his stuff. This was an excellent match, and it was the fourth match on the show. It got 4.25 stars, but if you've never seen 05 Samoa Joe, I want to challenge you. Go out of your way to watch his match with Chris Sabin. They go 14 minutes, and it's outstanding. Samoa Joe was a badass athlete. He oozed charisma and credibility, authenticity, and you just couldn't help but fall in love with this match. Normally sometimes we have fun talking about the bad matches, but this is a great one, and it's not even a main event. But look at the faces on the fans behind you. Everyone's enthralled. Everyone's paying attention. This is about as good as it gets. So shout out to Scott D'Amore for understanding who to put him with. We know Chris Sabin is one of D'Amore's go-to guys. And man, the way he built Samoa Joe here, it led to the biggest pay-per-view in TNA history because I think in large part because of the way D'Amore helped know how to frame Samoa Joe, don't you think?
The build when we came
Yes.
in, yeah, and I remember in the creative rooms, hey, it all worked out. There was no reason to beat him, and I know as the months got rolling, it was on my plate, I'll say, and I was just like, no, there's no reason, and this is long before we knew we were going to get Kurt. And when that lined up and the headbutt and the visual of, okay, it was our version of, I hate to say this, Hogan Andre, but Kurt coming in, massive. I mean, a guy, a former world heavyweight champion, the red, white, and blue, he was coming to stop the immovable. How'd Gorilla used to call Andre?
The irresistible force, meaning the immovable object.
Okay, Joe was the immovable object, and because there was steam and steam and steam and steam and steam. So yes, the early, we'll call it the early Joe, he just had that aggression. I can remember us figuring out when we got Kim on Spike, how can we make Joe, and Joe wasn't the biggest fan of it, but the Samoan, oh boy, what do they call that dance? But man, there was some electricity on pay-per-view entrances with Joe because there was so much hype built in behind him and a steamrolling undefeated streak. It's hard to really do that and keep it rolling without damaging other talent. But again, Joe's talent, like you're pointing out to this version of Samoa Joe, he could go on a tear, but he could beat a guy and the guy would be better off for it. That's talent.
Samoa Joe in this era brought an air of a big fight feel.
Yep.
And it felt like, hey, you're watching other people have matches, but when you knew Joe was coming, I mean, when fans would chant, Joe's going to kill you and things like that, they knew, hey, an ass whooping's coming. It's just a matter of time. He was almost like a pro wrestling equivalent. And some people are going to poke fun at this, but you had to be there. It was like the modern wrestling version of Mike Tyson. Like, oh, now we're going to see something.
Yep.
Let's talk about the six-man here. Eric Young, Bobby Roode, and A1 taking on Andy Douglas, Chase Stevens, and Lance Hoyt. I don't know why I love this match. I hold Bobby Roode in such high regard. I think you and I are both super Eric Young fans, so talented. But if I'm honest with you, I've always loved the naturals. Andy Douglas and Chase Stevens, they are day one TNA guys, or so it felt to me. And Lance Hoyt, who, boy, at this point in his career had not yet become the murder hawk or whatever he is in AEW yet, but really talented guys working their ass off. I'm thankful that TNA existed 20 years ago to give all of these guys an opportunity to go on to achieve what else they would achieve in wrestling. Really fun match, 3.5 stars in a 6-man. Next up, we got Kip James tagging with Bonnie Brown to take on Conan and Ron Killings. It's a no DQ street fight. And like last month, this is more of an angle than a match, but it was better than last month. Killings has got the crowd getting into it, and he's doing another running dive and flipping off into the crowd. And everyone knows Billy Gunn as Billy Gunn, and he's going to get some color here. And Conan's hip is way worse than ever before, according to Dave Meltzer. He's limping pretty badly, and he's not moving as well, and it's kind of noticeable. BG James shows up on the ramp, and he's watching. And 3 Live Crew is such an overact, and the fans still want it, but they're just here sort of teasing the reunion of the New Age Outlaws. What do you remember about this? I mean, it's a great problem to have when you've got one of the most successful financially tag teams of all time in the New Age Outlaws. They're both in the company, so it's a no-brainer to put them together. But what they were doing before Billy got there was still over as hell too. Like, BG James, criminally underrated for having that connection with the crowd, don't you think?
The charisma. And I was just sitting there, I don't want to gloss by because you know how, and we talked about this in the Uber ride, I think it was last week, just the TNA time frame of Eric and Bobby were Asylum Day guys.
Yes.
Eric's still associated with the brand and working on the brand. 20 years later, Bobby has obviously gone on and he's in-ring career, but he's contributing to the business in a major way. Lance Hoyt still doing his thing in AEW and in Japan. Brian, obviously still contributor. Billy still contributor. But coming off this, the 3 Live Crew and Ron Killings, he's still contributing. Yes, that how do we capture the magic? Because, you know, if you've, especially when Brian had his podcast and you got to hear it right out of him and Cassia's mouth, but, you know, Billy and Brian were put together. Billy coming off Rockabilly, Brian coming off, quote unquote, the real Double J. You talk about 2 guys that were
dead in the freaking water.
Yeah, however you say that. But yes, I mean, that the reality is that's how they got put together out of kind of, I mean, when I say nowhere, but their instant on-screen chemistry is obviously undeniable. And you pull those guys out of DX, one of the greatest factions of all time. It's just they had chemistry. And so at TNA, you know, we had a boatload of talent. Did we always book them right? No, but man, oh man, Conrad, just kind of going through this pay-per-view. And this is in the era, remember, I just said, we have no TV. We run kind of a holding pattern, getting ready to launch on Spike. So, oh, fun times, Connie, fun times.
And so is this next match. AJ Styles and Sean Waltman are going to hook it up. Meltzer would say this is one of Waltman's best performances in years. Jerry Lynn is going to be the special guest referee, and I guess that's the story, is whose side is he on, and he's going to try to call it right down the middle. This is a fun match. AJ gets the win, 4 stars. I think you and I both hold Sean Waltman in high regard. He was the measuring stick with the WWE for a long time. So you know he's going to have great matches. He's had consistently great matches his entire career. But AJ Styles is kind of going to be the franchise player here in TNA. Look at that bloody nose and the aggression and the emotion in a young AJ. I love AJ Styles in this era. I think most people would agree he is the breakout star of TNA. And there's the finish. The Styles Clash gets it done. Just another classic match. If you want to go relive, because listen, let's be honest. At this point, a lot of people had negative things to say about Sean Waltman, and certainly he had his personal issues and ups and downs. But man, when he was on, there weren't many people better, and this was a fantastic match between these 2.
And I gave Sean the biggest hug when I saw him last Tuesday, and it was good. And getting to do the pod today and see all this, and you know, the story of Jerry Lynn and the early days, him and Sean got started together out of Minnesota, and they did a little stuff in Dallas. So there was a story there. Again, this is in that holding pattern, but what a show. It clicked in so many ways, but the story of Jerry basically kind of being the veteran of the X division, and as you said, the young upstart got a rocket on his rear end coming out of it. So a lot of fun. They worked their ass off. Sean, I mean, they both guys, they tore the house down. So a fun, not just a fun match, just a hell of a match. But yeah, getting those 2, it's, you know, a lot of people nowadays, they probably think of Sean as you know, but way back when in 2005, AJ Styles and Sean Waltman tore the house down at a TNA pay-per-view. It's one of those things like, shit, I didn't even know that happened, but yes, it did.
It did indeed. An incredible match, and we're following up with yet another one, this time for the X Division title. Christopher Daniels and Petey Williams put on a clinic, 16 minutes and 20 seconds. They've got Samoa Joe watching on to show you that he is indeed an X Division guy, and he wants that X Division title. I think that's an important thing, because otherwise fans may assume he wants the world title. So let's make sure he's keeping an eye on this one. Christopher Daniels and Petey Williams have both really been working as heels, but they're going to be more subtle heels, but fans are really appreciating what they can do. Petey Williams has been the talk of the business at this point for over a year with his Canadian Destroyer, one of the most revolutionary moves at the time. It's one of the last times that we saw a move and everybody said, oh, you got to see it. I mean, it's kind of hard to describe it if you've never seen it before, and we take it for granted now, but Petey Williams really the first one to popularize it on a national stage. Christopher Daniels gets the win. I think you could argue that Christopher Daniels was the secret sauce for a lot of those early TNA days.
Oh yeah.
And we know both of these guys now are really power players behind the scenes. Christopher Daniels with AEW and Petey Williams with WWE. And here they are tearing it up. And I guess what would be second to last on the show, 3.25 stars, yet another great match. Not to pile on or be negative, but you take a look at this card and you compare it to later TNA cards, and you'll certainly see a shift. You've got a lot of homegrown talent. I just want to run through some of the names again, starting at the beginning. Shocker, Jarrell Clark, Chris Harris, James Storm, Alex Shelley, Michael Shane, Sanjay Dutt, Mikey Batts, Shark Boy, Elix Skipper, Apollo, Sonny Siaki, Simon Diamond, David Young, Samoa Joe, Chris Sabin, Eric Young, Bobby Roode, A1, Andy Douglas, Chase Stevens, Lance Hoyt, Kip James, Monty Brown, Conan, Ron Killings, BG James, AJ Styles, Sean Waltman, Jerry Lynn, Christopher Daniels, Petey Williams. You can tell, respectfully, we're balling on a budget. None of these are mainstream, well-established Hall of Fame talent at this point. There's a handful who have had there and been to the mountaintop, but a lot of these guys are young and hungry and trying to make a name for themselves. And the result was, when you bought a TNA pay-per-view, buddy, you got great freaking wrestling. And that was the differentiator, right? Like, hey, they may be more sports entertainment, but we got kick-ass matches over here.
Well, and that was the nucleus of us, the little engine that could. I mean, even see a young Rudy Charles. I used to hate those sideburns. He'd grow them on purpose, I think, to piss me off. But, Rudy just did Cena Cody.
Yep.
So he's around 20 years later. That nucleus, you just hit the nail on the head. Everybody dug in, and I mean everybody. And I don't want to even state this without also echoing the post-production department, the production department. Everybody in the company had just kind of a sense of, and you had to live it. And I do this as I sit here today in 25. I'm very blessed that I was a part of a nucleus that said, you know what, folks, we're going to go out and bust ass. And we know we're different. We know we're unique. We know we're not WWE, but boy, oh boy, if you come to our show and support our show, you are going to leave it knowing that these guys put their ass on the line and you enjoyed a TNA show.
Let's talk about the main event. I mean, after all of this that we've seen with the X Division, you want to talk about having your work cut out for you. Raven and Abyss are going to go 19 minutes in a no DQ dog collar match for the NWA title. And this is an incredible match because what's interesting about it is I think everyone listening to this knows what I'm saying respectfully. These guys are not going to be flying all over the ring like an X Division. So we're going to have to give them something different than. And boy, do we. And I know it's easy to dismiss this and say it's a garbage match, but the fans are into it. Look at everybody standing. Like, they told a great story. I think Raven and Abyss are criminally underrated for their contributions. I know all the praise always gets heaped on to the X Division. Raven knew how to tell stories. Abyss knew how to tell stories. That's evident with the high level work that Abyss does behind the scenes right now. Just a great mind for the business. And people have been saying that about Raven for 25 years. But it's high time people start talking about the real life Chris Park that way. And what a sacrifice. I mean, we're talking whatever there is, not just chains, but tables and ladders and chairs and staplers. I mean, literally everything we can do. These guys pull out all the stops and fans are with it. And that's what it's about. Not necessarily, how many stars it got, but what did the fans think? And fans were into this. What did you think of the chemistry that Raven and Abyss have? Ultimately, Raven gets the victory, but it could have just as easily been Abyss, and it would have been believable with that crowd that night.
Well, I mean, I think you said something along the lines of this, but I did. My vote for who was going to be champion was Raven. In a lot of ways. I mean, you go back to the Asylum and Jarrett or Raven, and I've heard it told to me by a few folks that were still so invested in that. Jeff, he should have beat you that time in the Asylum. You had the people lined up around the building. Why didn't you drop it to him? Well, Conrad just stated it earlier, but it was, again, Abyss knew how he was the perfect opponent at the perfect time for Raven. He became champion. Who can we put him up against to have a Raven? How can we highlight Raven the absolute best? Right there. The team put those two together and look what they produced. again, I'm glad you kind of said that. People and again, it's the narrative and all this, and Abyss probably didn't get his flowers but I don't think he gave a shit, and I don't either in reality, is because you wanted to dial into the character. But in this day and age of the unreal and pulling the curtain back, Abyss is part of that straw that's stirring the drink where he's at now, and rightly so.
Abyss is the man. I don't know another way to see it. And I love this finish. It's a DDT, easy for me to say, onto thumbtacks. That's what gets the win for Raven. You're going to come out and confront Raven after that, and you're going to tell him to turn around. Rhino gores him to end the show. The crowd's all into it, so it works. But the real story coming out of the show is we're just weeks away, or I guess a couple of months away, from the October debut, and we know now it's real. Now you're going to have to sort of get your house in order in terms of, we got to make sure that we got our talent locked down and WWE can't mess with us. And I mean, you're going to be taking arrows every which way you can. So there's a report in the Observer that you're not going to be making many more additions to the roster until you get television. There may be one or two, but you're kind of in this lame duck space where you need to keep people engaged, but you're waiting to make your big splash on a national stage. How difficult is that for you to try to have that patience and that diligence? Because on the one hand, when you've got momentum like this, because this is a well-received pay-per-view, you kind of want to keep that going. You need to keep that going. But at the same time, you don't want to get the cart before the horse. You need your big stuff to be on a bigger platform with the national TV of Spike. How challenging was this period right here when you've got it, but not just yet? Is it happening?
In the history of TNA, this 90-ish days, maybe a little bit more than that, because making the decision, it was so challenging, because look, there's a creative aspect to it, but there's also a talent contract standpoint, and there's also trying to figure out that, and look, every creative person would kind of look at this different, but I looked at it as, okay, we've written a book that started June 19th, 2002, and here's the first, chapters and the NWA TNA and everything that goes with it. And then we did the Fox Sports, and the 6-sided ring was added. And we were defining at this time the 3 divisions, because the knockouts wasn't quite created. And then kind of, you just kind of look at it, all right, how are we going to come on the air in the Spike days? And these were the kind of the foundation pieces of the puzzle that we began to put together. And in a lot of ways, Conrad, it was an uncharted course, because we're bringing along the TNA fans that had, we'll say, brought us to the dance, but obviously getting on network television on a Saturday night on the same network that UFC was on, it was massive. And so you had to respect the audience that we were bringing to the table, but also understanding we're about to introduce entirely different brand. And, guys like Will Ospreay or Grado or others from the UK perspective, they had watched WWF really their entire lives. Some of them, they weren't even really familiar with WCW. So it was just like WWE was the only brand of wrestling. And then boom, pops in this new brand. Well, in America, obviously they had WCW, but we were coming on, and it had been 4 or 5 years since another brand of wrestling had really been on at this level. So there was all kinds of challenges, Conrad, on just making the right decision. And you have run business your whole life, Conrad. When I tell you the cash flow discussions with Dallas were some of the hardest that you can have, it's because we had, like zero revenue. So when there were some stragglers here and there, but for the most part, when you have no revenue coming in, but you haven't, accounted for in the books coming, but you're in this spot and you're dealing with, we'll call it finance folks from the power world, electric, oil, gas, light, all that shit, Conrad, it was hard. It was really, really hard, but we made it through it. But super challenge, that this 90-ish days was some of the most challenging of my professional career.
I can only imagine how tough it must be, because you're on the precipice of greatness, but can we get there? How do we survive? How do we navigate? And behind the scenes, you've got to deal with all the political stuff. I wanted to mention it was in the Observer where Samoa Joe did an interview where he was asked about turning down WWE and coming to TNA. And he basically said he thought it was a better fit for his style and he could do more of what he wanted to do and what he enjoyed. But it's even written that once he was in TNA, quote, it even got to the point where his finisher was questioned because chokes aren't legal in pro wrestling, although that's a 10-year battle because once it became a prime UFC weapon and Taz used it as a finisher in ECW, that became a 70s mindset. Do you remember there being discussion about the choke that Joe was using, that maybe he shouldn't be doing that? Because that kind of caught me off guard.
I don't recall that at all. I kind of think that was I don't know. I just said,
innuendo.
Yes, because you know me, I'm showbiz. I would have never said, now wait a minute. Hey, he can't do that. That's not like, come on, guys.
Yeah, this is a guy who used to hit people over the head with guitars. So I didn't think it was you. I do want to ask, as we're getting ready to put a button on today's episode. Oh, before we do, I should remind everybody that, I don't know if you've seen, but interest rates are starting to tick down. You can save some money right now at savewithconrad.com. All right, folks, take a look at this chart right here. What we're seeing is that the percentage of disposable income that's really just going for debt service here in America is like 11.28%. It's been climbing ever since the pandemic. And what that means is folks are spending a lot of the money they earn today to pay for bills they ran up way back when. Is that you? Are you carrying credit card balances right now? Well, I want to encourage you, stop taking out new debt at really crazy high interest rates. And instead, let's start using some of that equity in your house. Someone who did exactly that was my man, Justin. He's an auto sales manager there in Knoxville, Tennessee. He was looking to do a little home remodeling, and he kind of liked the idea of getting rid of some debt. Well, check out these before and after photos. Justin actually used the equity in his house to turn his home into his dream home. Yeah. And on top of that, we paid off all of his debt, and he even got to skip 2 house payments. Like right now, if you haven't already, you don't have to make your July or your August payment. You're done until September 1st. And come September 1st, you could be saving a boatload of cash. Just ask Justin. He upgraded his house. He got rid of his credit card debt, and he's going to save $1,000 a month. How do you make your house nicer and get rid of your credit card debt and save money? It's easy. You go to savewithconrad.com. You let my team run the numbers for you for free, just like we did for Justin. By the way, there's no cost, there's no obligation, and if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. So what are you waiting for? It costs nothing to look. And by the way, if you've been looking to see what rates are doing, let me put your peace of mind in play here. We've got a year 3 guarantee here at savewithconrad.com. All the experts seem to agree that interest rates are going to improve over the next few years. Well, I don't want you to miss out on that. So here's an opportunity for you to go ahead and start saving as much money as possible right now, but not waste money later. When interest rates improve, we'll throw you another refi without charging you a whole new set of lender fees. So you're going to save on closing costs later, but you'll start saving money today at savewithconrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. And again, you don't need perfect credit. So even if you've had some troubles in the past, you need a plan. We want to be your mortgage advisor for life. Give me a shout at savewithconrad.com. Jeff, I wanted to get your opinion. I don't know if you saw this, but this past Friday, something interesting happened on SmackDown. It was in Montreal, and I assume it's probably John Cena's last time being in Montreal. He was a tag team partner with Cody Rhodes, and they took on Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. But before he went to the ring, they did sort of a tongue-in-cheek moment with Ron Killings and John Cena. And John Cena was basically like, man, I'm glad to see you. I don't know what happened there for like 5 months. It's like you lost your mind. You said you were going to ruin wrestling. Did you think that was ever going to really work? So it's a tongue-in-cheek comedy thing. What are they doing with Ron Killings? Is that the biggest drop ball this year so far, do you think, by WWE? Like, he had so much organic momentum, and he shows up, grabs the microphone, stands on the desk, cuts his hair off, and then nothing? Like, what happened? Is this, I'm not trying to pick on WWE, but as a fan of Ron Killings, I think you and I were both like, oh man, he's fixing to get the push of a lifetime. I feel like Lee Corso's in the room with us and goes, not so fast, my friend. Nothing. What happened?
Obviously not in the room. and you know my relationship with Ron, what I believe in, but not so fast, my friend. Would you say in the last couple of years there's been a bigger groundswell for a talent that got released? And
Nope.
I can't really
Nope.
think about it. Okay. So Ronnie had, just a massive outpouring of support. And what did WWE do? Is it a chess play? My gut tells me yes. Okay, hey, we're going to bring this guy back, sign him to a new deal, and the first night out, what are we going to do? We're going to change his character. It devalued it, and at the end of the day, the truth that I absolutely loved in 02, 03, 04, and 05, and we've talked about it, even maybe in 06 and 3 Live Crew and all this, but the 24/7, 365 Ron character that has been on WWE TV for years, they killed that off in one night. And it's pretty obvious the powers that be lost interest in booking that one.
I mean, he comes out and says, I'm not a comedy character. And the next time we see him, he's doing comedy. And he takes his hat off and rubs his head where his hair used to be. I mean, listen, the check's still clearing, on some level. I'm sure he's happy to have the income. But on the other hand, it's like, as a fan, I'm kind of like, what the fuck, man?
Here's what, from if that's the way, if Ronnie wanted to go that way, or creative wanted that go away, or if they all wanted to go the way that they did, and I'll call it, put a real edge to the truth. I get that. Ron, the truth killing. If they're going that way, don't we think we could have told a story to get there?
Yeah.
I think when I tried to, it was a head scratcher, because he came back with all that love and adoration that you could have, I feel like you missed about a 4, 6, 8, maybe 10, 12 week kind of, I'll call it the honeymoon period, the feel good period that went out the window, and they jumped right into Hard Edge. Wait a minute. That isn't who we supported coming back. Wait, we didn't even get to have fun with him for a little bit. I mean, I don't know.
What happened? Is it The Rock? Is it Travis Scott? That happened on June 1st when he's let go. Here we are in mid-August. It was 2.5 months ago. Something changed. It had to, because it makes no sense otherwise. Don't you agree?
I agree. To me, they devalue who they brought back overnight. Why? That's not for me to know. I have no idea.
Well, here's what I know. AEW is going to the ECW arena. I'm going to plan to be there August 27th. I can't wait. I hope you'll go grab your tickets. Come say hello at EWTIX.com. And that'll be just a couple of days after the 4th largest non-AEW gate in history. AEW Forbidden Door is on tap. Go grab those tickets right now at EWTIX.com. And if you haven't already, go hit the subscribe button right now at myworldpod.com. It's easy. That's our YouTube. Just look for My World. We want you to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell. You don't want to miss us the next time we're live. And we'll see you sooner rather than later right here on My World.
Peace.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-free shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today. And hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. Adfreeshows.com.